Hello and welcome to the show. This week's rivalry is less about the two cars going up against each other. These two aren't really a fair fight. One is a supercar and one is a sports car. It's more about how they compare to the more mainstream, the more common Porsches and Ferraris, and to give these lesser known cars a chance to sort of shine. Now we start with the Morgan Aero Supersports. This is an odd looking thing. I'm going to be honest, it is the newer version of the car. The older version was well known for being quite cross-eyed, it was a car that you sort of just couldn't help laughing at because it did look rather ridiculous. The new one, the facelift one I should say, it looks a little bit odd, but I do kind of like that. It's different, it's memorable, it's certainly very unique. It's not everybody would like it. It's different, and I like that in a car, like a car that doesn't sort of follow tradition. A bit like the Zonda. I like that when that was released, that was very different. This is, again, it's a very different sort of styling, and it's a little bit sideways, and I've fallen off the road 3 times in 3 corners. Not so good driving from me there, ignore that bit. Anyway, with the Aero 8 and the Super Sports of this one is Morgan sort of broke with tradition. They are kind of well known for making cars out of bits of scenery. This one though is made from aluminium, which makes it pretty light at £2,700. Power-wise, it has a BMW V8 engine in it, producing 362 horsepower. Not huge amounts of horsepower, however it doesn't weigh too much. And yeah, it's relatively fast. 0 to 60 takes 4.2 seconds. We'll go on to a top speed of 180 miles an hour. That's pretty good statistics for this car. It is a sort of a low A class, I would say, sort of rival for a Porsche Boxster maybe, or Porsche Cayman. Handling wise, it's a little bit interesting. It's a little bit scary. I'm going to be honest, it doesn't have a huge amounts of power, but it is quite tail happy. As you saw, I struggled a little bit with it on its first lap, and still, it does want to go sideways a lot. It is quite fun to drive. I'm going to be honest, it's quite a nice car to drive. It's not really a racing car as such. The handling isn't amazing, but it's kind of fun. Kind of fun to sort of throw it around in the corners, and it will go sideways quite a bit. The only real downside to this car is the price. At 160,000 credits, it is quite a lot of money for an A-Class. Porsche Boxster is a lot less and probably not much slower. Now the second car that we have here is the Wiesmann GT MF5. There we go, I will remember that name at one point. Now I drove the older version of this in a challenge a while ago, and it was pretty mental. It was a very leery, sideways, scary thing. The new one, or the slightly newer one, I should say, there's another year difference in them. I was expecting something fairly similar. Now, you can often tell a car, sort of the way a car is going to drive when you just look at it and hear the name. Lotus 211, for example. When you look at that car, you know it's a Lotus, you know how that thing is going to drive. When you look at a Shelby Mustang, you know how that thing's going to drive. With this, I was expecting it to be a little bit ridiculous, like the older one was, but it's actually a really, really good car. This was probably one of the biggest surprises I've ever had with a car on Forza. I really like this car. It is incredibly nice to drive. It's really good through the corners. If you want to be a bit mental and a bit silly, then you can. You can just give it a boot full of power and it will go sideways pretty much everywhere. But if you actually want to race this car properly, it is incredibly good. It has a BMW V8. However, this one is from the M5. It is the twin-turbo V8, which puts out 547 horsepower, which is quite a lot in this small sort of car. It does weigh more than the Morgan, which surprised me. It weighs 3,000 pounds. 0 to 60 time, 3.8 seconds, so again, a little bit quicker. Top speed is only 178, however, I am fairly sure that's because this car has quite shortened gears, which is a good thing. It's good to see that, because a lot of tracks you don't really get up to sort of the really high top speed, so the shortened gears is pretty good around the majority of tracks. The only downside to this car, again, it's the price, 260,000 credits. That's Ferrari 458 Italia money. Now we're going to have a look with these two cars around our track. Now we have got the screen sort of running alongside each other, but we know the Wiesmann is going to be a lot quicker. It is a low S-Class, I think that's 630, whereas the Morgan is an A-Class at about 520. However, since we have both of these laps done by the stick, we might as well put them both up so you can see both of the cars going around. Expectation-wise, well, as I said, Morgan being a I've got confused. What am I talking about? The Morgan being a low A-Class car is going to be towards the bottom of our table. The Wiesmann, well, it should be a lot quicker, Quite where it's going to go, I'm not sure. I think it's a really good car, so it could surprise us. But again, it's not going to be near the top. It is only an S-Class car. As you can see, they're both coming into the hammerhead. Now, as I expected, the Wiesmann is a fair way ahead. I have to say, of these two cars, you can barely hear the Wiesmann. It's very, very strange. When I was watching the replays of it, like for this ridiculously powerful and fast supercar, it barely makes any noise. You can hardly hear it going through the tyre walls, whereas the Morgan's making all sorts of rackets. Come up towards the final corner now before the Wiesmann gets turned in very nicely. There's no scary oversteer moments for that, and as the Wiesmann comes around the last corner, the Morgan's just about reaching the second to last corner, and the Wiesmann is across the line and has a little spin. Well done, Stig, and the Morgan does exactly the same thing. What's going on, Stig? What have you been doing? I will point out that the Stig said that they weren't deliberate. That's just what happened with the two cars, which is unusual for the Stig to be making two mistakes on two hot laps. But anyway, it is time for the lap times. The Wiesmann did a 1:16.0, which puts it up with an Audi R8 and a Ferrari F40. I think it's a pretty respectable time. It's about right for its PI. To be honest, I was actually expecting it might have gone a little bit faster because I really like that car. But that was the time for the Wiesmann. And for the Morgan, well, it was a fair way down the leaderboard, and it did a 1:20.5. Again, I'm pretty impressed with that time as well, I have to say. Makes it the same speed as a Ferrari California. Again, that's a fairly impressive time, I think, from the Morgan. And it's faster than a Viper GTS and the Seat touring car. Of the two cars, I like both of them. I think they are both interesting alternatives, and I definitely think if you haven't driven them, which is quite a good possibility you haven't driven them, you should give them a go, especially the Wiesmann. It's a really nice car to drive, that one. It was a massive, massive surprise to me, I have to say. As far as price goes, they are both very expensive for what they are. The Morgan, 160,000 credits for that. That's quite a lot for an A-Class car. It's been a fun, but I wouldn't say it's particularly good value for money. The Wiesmann is stupendously expensive at 260,000 credits. It is, I would say it is worth it because it is a really nice car to drive. But it is a lot of money when you can get 458 Italia for less, McLaren MP4 for less, and it's not quite as fast as them. But to be honest, I would have more fun in the Wiesmann. So there we go, that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. As ever, if you have rivalries you would like to see us do, then please leave them in the comment section. We will have a look through and we will pick our favourites. However, until next time, goodbye.